Adam Schiff, the ranking member on the House Intelligence Committee, a good friend to us here. We're awfully glad to have you, Congressman. Let's get right to the top of the hour, which happened there, because we heard the president's response to North Korea's latest provocations. He is not taking military action off the table. Do you think we're heading down that path?
I certainly hope not, because there really are no good military options. The North Koreans could really devastate South Korea just by the use of conventional artillery. I think it's perfectly appropriate for the administration to be putting pressure on China. China is a real key to choking off the economic lifeline for North Korea. But an excess of saber rattling, I think, is very dangerous. We have an unpredictable leader in North Korea. We don't want to provoke a confrontation that could really result in a tremendous loss of life. And we also don't want to see the president back himself into a corner where, if the North Korean leader goes forward with a nuclear test or some other provocation, that the president feels he needs to use military force or essentially lose face. So it's a very treacherous situation, and I would urge the president to walk softly and carry a big stick. He doesn't need to be brandishing the military option in a way that could provoke an unexpected escalation.
I want to get your interpretation, sir, into what we heard from John McCain, which was reaction to the president's tweet, which was saying the missile test was disrespectful to China. Do you think there's some sort of a strategic reason why the president said that? Could he be trying to distance himself from the situation?
I think what he's trying to do is to appeal to the Chinese president to do more, and by saying this isn't really a criticism or reflection on the United States, it's a reflection on the Chinese leader. I think he's hoping to provoke the Chinese leader into doing more. I don't think that's going to work. It may be better than getting out and castigating the Chinese leader and embarrassing the Chinese leader. The reality is, though, what the North is doing is a repudiation of what we are trying to get them to do, what the entire international community is trying to do. I think what will resonate with China, frankly, more than a tweet suggesting that this is a humiliation for the Chinese president, is to very matter of fact, they make it clear to China that if they don't crack down on North Korea, we'll be forced to take steps to defend ourselves, to defend our allies in the region that China isn't going to want to see happen in terms of an acceleration of missile defense, a greater naval presence, and probably most potent of all, the imposition of secondary sanctions, where we are willing to sanction Chinese banks that are doing business with North Korea.
Yeah. Let's get to the president's latest comments now about the Trump-Russia investigation. Let's watch what he said first in an interview on Friday.
I call it the fake Russia story. Russia story was made up because they were embarrassed by their loss. They had this tremendous loss, a loss like nobody's ever seen before. And not only did I won easily. So they made up this Russia thing to try and deflect because they're embarrassed by what happened.
Congressman, have you seen enough now that you're confident that statement will be proven false through hard evidence?
Oh, I think there's no question about it. The intelligence community is quite uniform in its conclusion that Russia was involved in hacking the election. I'll tell you what's been most striking to me about the 100 days and the comments that he's made just within the last 24 to 48 hours is day 101 looks a lot like day one. You have Donald Trump still in denial that the Russians were involved in hacking our election. He said on Face the Nation that it could have been the Chinese. He's still refusing to release his tax returns, claiming they're under audit. He's still blaming Obama for things. He's still bragging about the size of his electoral college win. This is all the same stuff we heard on day one, and it's very discouraging because it suggests, more than suggests, that this president is not growing with the job, and we can expect the same thing on the first day of the administration, on the last day of this administration, and that, I think, is deeply discouraging.
Where do you think the investigation into Russia, though, stands right now, based on everything you've learned in the investigation?
Well, I can really probably only talk most about process at this point, and you know, I can report, I think, and I'm pleased to do so, that we are back on track in the House Intelligence Committee. Mike Conaway and I are working together very well. We're back to scheduling witnesses. We're reviewing additional documents. We're requesting additional documents. So we're doing the steps we should be taking, the steps we should be taking. and I think that's very positive. We're looking at a range of issues, including obviously the issue of any coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia, but also the U.S. government response to the hacking. Were we too lethargic in how we dealt with it? We're also looking at the issues of whether the intelligence community was right in its conclusion about why Russia got involved in terms of hurting Secretary Clinton and helping Donald Trump. So I think we're proceeding much as we should be.
I'm going to try and see if I can get you in a detail here, though, based on something that you said in an earlier interview when you say they've used in Europe, for example, they have used blackmail, they've used compromising material, they've used financial entanglement, they've used hacking, they've used dumping, they've used paid media trolls. Some of these things we know they have used here. Can you be specific as to what you know they have used here?
Well, I think it's quite clear from the public record that obviously they were deeply involved in hacking democratic institutions, that they were involved in the dumping of these documents through cutouts like WikiLeaks and Guccifer 2, DC Leaks. We also know that they had a very extensive media operation. We are investigating some of the other tactics that the Russians have used elsewhere in terms of whether they had the explicit help of U.S. persons, whether they had compromising material, whether they used financial entanglement to get people to support policies that are favorable to Russia. So these are issues that we are properly looking into. They're stratagems that the Russians have used elsewhere, but I can't go into the particulars on those.
How about some of the big hearings that are just ahead in the House and Senate committees? You have former Acting Attorney General Sally Yates. She's testifying for the first time, along with others that include the former Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, also CIA Director James Brennan. What do you expect to come out of these hearings?
Well, we have a couple hearings that we have scheduled or are trying to schedule. We have one, a closed hearing with Directors Comey and Rogers, the Director of the FBI and the Director of the NSA. They came and testified, as you recall, in open session. We're going to have a closed hearing late next week with them so that we can ask a lot of the questions they were not able to answer in open session. But we've also attempted to reschedule the open hearing with Sally Yates and Directors Clapper and Brennan. We're in the process of talking with their team to try to set that up. Of course, there's also a hearing that's going to go on with at least a couple of those witnesses in the Senate, so we're doing our best to coordinate. But I think we'll, learn more about what went into Michael Flynn's firing. I think the public will learn a lot more about the nature of the Russian intervention in our election. And one of the reasons why I think the open hearings are so important is we can't conduct this investigation solely in private closed session and then at some later point throw open the doors and say, okay, here's our report, America, believe it. We need to, I think, bring the country along with the investigation, let them understand in general outline who we're talking to, what issues we're exploring, what progress we're making to the degree that we can. Obviously, some of it's going to have to be done in closed session, but I think it's very important to keep the public informed as best we can.
Another big issue on your agenda, sir, you introduced a bill in Congress this week which is aimed at formally authorizing military force against ISIS, al-Qaeda, and the Taliban. Is this in response to the 2001 AUMF? Do you think that's outdated?
Absolutely, and this is something that I've been trying to get a vote on now for several years. Tim Kaine, my colleague in the Senate, has been working on the same issue in his respective House. But unfortunately, and I think you have to lay a lot of the responsibility here with the Obama administration, we're still using these old authorizations that really don't fit the conflict that we're in. Indeed, they're being used to use force against ISIS, which didn't even exist at the time of 9/11, and the authorization we passed after 9/11 authorizes the force against those who attacked us. Well, obviously, an organization that didn't exist at the time doesn't really fit within that definition. But nonetheless, because the Obama administration interpreted it that way, it gives the Trump administration free rein to do exactly the same thing, which puts effectively a little limit on the president's use of force anywhere in the world against anyone either associated with al-Qaeda or associated with ISIS. And that's a real problem in terms of providing a real check and balance by the Congress on the executive branch and its ability to make war. So I would hope we could take this up or something limited authority and reestablish Congress in its constitutional role of either declaring war or refusing to authorize war.
And do you at all worry, sir, that that can also tie the hands of a president in an emergency situation? Does it concern you at all?
You know, it doesn't, because in an emergency, the president has the Article 2 power to do anything necessary to defend the country or to defend our troops overseas. So he has that inherent power. I'm frankly far more worried that we've given this president a blank check. And while I had more confidence in the last president wouldn't abuse that blank check. I didn't even want the last president to operate under that kind of open-ended authority. I certainly don't want this president to do so. I would hope that many of my Republican colleagues would feel the same way and that we could make this a strongly bipartisan effort.
All right, California Democrat Representative Adam Schiff, always good to see you, sir. Thanks so much for making the time.
Thanks, likewise, Alex.